Front door was wrong. Standing on Mum's porch with a bouquet of daisies and Lena's homemade birthday cake, I stared at the oak door hanging slightly ajar. Mum never left doors open. "Mom?" I called through the gap, pushing the door wider with my shoulder. The house felt hollow, too quiet for a Sunday morning brunch. "We're here for your birthday." That's when I saw her. Margaret Chen, 67 years old, crumpled at the bottom of the stairs like a discarded doll. Bruises bloomed purple across her pale arms, and her thin body trembled against the hardwood floor. The cake hit the floor as I rushed toward her. Behind me, Lena's car door slammed, her heels clicking rapidly up the front steps. Her scream pierced the morning silence. "Oh my God!" She fell again. Lena's voice cracked as she pushed past me, dropping to her knees beside Mum. I told her she shouldn't be alone anymore. A shattered coffee mug lay scattered on the step above Mum's head, ceramic pieces catching the morning light. Mum's faded blue eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glazed with confusion. "Mum, can you hear me?" I knelt beside her frail body, my hands shaking as I checked for obvious injuries. Her silver hair was matted with something that might have been coffee. Lena was already on her phone with 911, her voice steady and professional. "Yes, my elderly mother has fallen down the stairs. She's conscious but disoriented. Please hurry." I should have asked why Lena seemed so calm. I should have wondered why she knew exactly what to tell the dispatcher. Instead, I held Mum's trembling hand and waited for help to arrive. EMT Johnson loaded Mum onto the stretcher with practiced efficiency. Her body looked impossibly small against the white sheets, like she'd shrunk overnight into something fragile and breakable. At Mercy General, Dr. Harrison delivered news that made my stomach drop. She's severely dehydrated and undernourished. We're also seeing concerning levels of mixed medications in her system. Lena gripped my arm, her green eyes filling with tears. I knew I should have been checking on her more. This is my fault for leaving her alone. "I'll move in with her," Lena announced in the hospital waiting room, her voice firm with determination. "I'll take care of everything. Mum needs someone there full-time." Everyone nodded approvingly. The nurses praised Lena's selflessness. Dr. Harrison shook her hand, calling her a devoted daughter. I felt guilt settle heavy in my chest. Why hadn't I noticed Mum declining? Why hadn't I been the one to step up? Lena had always been the responsible older sister, and once again, she was saving the day. Mum spent 3 days in the hospital, and Lena barely left her side. She brought Mum's favorite lavender lotion, reorganized the medical chart, and charmed every nurse on the floor with her attentiveness. "You don't need to stay every night," I told Lena as she settled into the uncomfortable hospital chair. "I can take some shifts too." But Lena just smiled that caring smile that never quite reached her eyes. "I've got it handled, Alex. Mum needs consistency right now, and you have your job to worry about." Lena had transformed Mum's house by the time we brought her home. Safety rails lined the hallways, and a hospital bed sat in the living room, where Mum's favorite armchair used to be. "I thought she'd be more comfortable down here," Lena explained, fluffing the pillows with practiced care. No more dangerous stairs for her to navigate alone. Mum looked around her transformed home with confused eyes, as if she couldn't quite remember how she'd gotten there. Something about her expression made my chest tighten with unease. For the first 2 weeks, Lena sent daily text updates. Mum ate half her breakfast. Physical therapy went well. She's resting comfortably. The messages were detailed and reassuring. Then something shifted. The updates became shorter, less frequent. Mum's having a difficult day. She's not feeling well. The doctor adjusted her medication again. When I called to check in, Lena's voice carried a strain I hadn't heard before. "It's harder than I expected, Alex. She's declining faster than anyone thought possible." 3 weeks after the fall, I barely recognized the woman on the other end of our video call. Mum's cheeks had hollowed out, and her hands shook with a tremor that seemed to worsen each time I saw her. "The doctors say it's normal," Lena explained, angling the phone so I could see Mom sleeping in her hospital bed. Sometimes a fall like that accelerates the aging process. But Mum was only 67, and before the fall, she'd been gardening and driving herself to book club. The woman in that bed looked like she'd aged a decade in 3 weeks. Mrs. Rodriguez caught me in Mum's driveway the next time I visited. The elderly woman had lived next door for 15 years and knew Mum's routines better than anyone. "I don't want to gossip," she said, her weathered hands clutching her gardening gloves. "But I heard arguing the night before your mother fell. Raised voices coming from inside the house." My stomach clenched. Arguing? Mom was alone that night. Mrs. Rodriguez's dark eyes met mine steadily. "Wasn't that your sister's voice I heard calling her name?" I started calling Mom directly instead of going through Lena. But every time I dialed her number, Lena would answer instead. "She's resting right now, Alex. The doctors say she needs to conserve her energy." "Can I talk to her for just a minute?" I'd ask, hearing the desperation creak into my voice. "I just want to hear how she's doing." Lena's response was always the same measured tone. "She's confused today. Talking on the phone just agitates her more. Maybe try again tomorrow when she's having a better day." But tomorrow never seemed to come. During my next visit, I offered to help organize Mum's pills. The kitchen counter was covered with orange prescription bottles. More medications than I remembered her ever taking. "When did she start taking all of these?" I asked, reading labels for drugs I'd never heard of. Some bottles were nearly empty, while others looked barely touched. Lena swept the bottles into a basket before I could examine them closely. "The doctors have been adjusting her regimen. It's complex, but I've got it all figured out. Don't worry about it." "I think something's wrong," I told Lena the next day, following her into Mom's kitchen. "Mom was never this sick before the fall. This decline doesn't make medical sense." Lena's back stiffened as she prepared Mom's afternoon medications. "You're never here, Alex. You see her for an hour once a week and think you understand her condition better than her doctors?" Her voice carried a sharp edge I'd rarely heard before. "Don't you dare question how I take care of her. I'm the one dealing with this 24 hours a day." The pills rattled in her hands like tiny warning bells. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every conversation with Lena replayed in my mind, each deflection and excuse taking on a sinister weight. Mum's rapid decline, the constant medication changes, the way Lena controlled every interaction. My laptop glowed in the dark bedroom as I researched elder abuse warning signs. Isolation from family, unexplained injuries, rapid physical or mental decline, over-medication. The list made my hands shake. I stared at my phone, Mrs. Rodriguez's words echoing in my memory. Arguing voices the night before Mum fell. But Lena had said Mum was alone that night. I drove to Mum's house without calling first, my heart hammering against my ribs. Lena answered the door in her robe, hair disheveled, eyes flashing with annoyance at the unexpected visit. "She's having a bad day," Lena said, blocking the doorway with her body. "Maybe you should come back tomorrow when she's more alert." But I pushed past her anyway. Mum lay in the hospital bed like a ghost of herself, her breathing shallow and labored. Her skin had a grey pallor that made my stomach lurch with fear. "Mum?" I knelt beside the bed, taking her thin hand in mine. Her skin felt paper dry and cold, like touching autumn leaves. Her faded blue eyes struggled to focus on my face. For a moment, she seemed to recognize me. Her fingers tightened around mine with surprising strength, and she leaned closer, as if sharing a secret. "She gives me pills," Mum whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of her labored breathing, even when I say no. The words hit me like a physical blow. While Lena showered, I searched the kitchen with shaking hands. In the locked drawer I'd seen her access earlier, I found papers that made the room spin around me. Forged signatures on insurance documents, withdrawal slips from Mum's bank account, and underneath everything else, a do not resuscitate form with Mum's signature. Except I'd helped Mum write Christmas cards for decades, and that wasn't her handwriting. This wasn't caregiving. This was something far more sinister, orchestrated with careful precision. My sister hadn't been saving Mum's life, she'd been stealing it. Mrs. Rodriguez invited me onto her front porch, her eyes darting toward Mum's house as if afraid of being overheard. Her weathered hands shook as she poured tea from a ceramic pot. That night before your mother fell, I saw your sister leave the house around midnight. She was in a hurry, almost running to her car. The elderly woman's voice dropped to a whisper. Your mother was standing in the doorway, calling Lena's name. She sounded scared, Alex. I should have gone over to check on her, but I didn't want to interfere. I brought Mum to Dr. Patricia Moore's office without telling Lena about the appointment. Mum sat hunched in the wheelchair, looking smaller and more fragile than ever under the harsh fluorescent lights. After examining Mum privately, Dr. Moore pulled me into her office. Her expression was grave as she closed the door behind us with a soft click. None of this decline matches her original diagnosis, she said quietly. The symptoms you're describing look like chronic overmedication. Someone has been giving her drugs intentionally, in combinations that would cause exactly what you'll see. Sarah Williams, the elder care social worker, had kind eyes and a notebook full of careful questions. She interviewed Mom while I waited in the hallway. My hands clenched so tightly, my knuckles had gone white. When Lena arrived unexpectedly, her face went pale at the sight of the social worker's official badge. What's going on here? Who authorized this meeting? Her voice cracked with barely controlled panic. We're just doing a routine wellness check, Sarah replied calmly. But her eyes never left Lena's face, cataloging every micro-expression and defensive gesture. The pharmacy records told a story that made my stomach churn with disgust. Early refill requests for sedatives, duplicate prescriptions for medications that should never be combined, pills that weren't even prescribed for Mum's conditions. Sarah spread the documents across Mum's kitchen table like pieces of a horrifying puzzle. Can you explain these discrepancies, Ms. Chen? She asked Lena, her voice professionally neutral. Lena's green eyes darted between the papers, her carefully constructed facade finally beginning to crack. There must be some mistake, she whispered. Your mother was taking too long to deteriorate, Lena said, her voice hollow and defeated. The mask she'd worn for months had finally slipped completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. I was tired of waiting, tired of my life being on hold. She could have lived another 10 years, and for what? Lena's hands trembled as she spoke, but not with grief. I deserved my inheritance now, not when I'm too old to enjoy it. The fall wasn't a big push, just enough to scare her into needing me. I stared at my sister as if seeing her for the first time. This woman who'd shared my childhood, who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd held me when our father died, had been slowly poisoning our mother. You tried to kill her, I whispered, the words feeling surreal as they left my lips. You were supposed to protect her, and instead you tried to kill her. Lena's laugh was bitter and broken. I was protecting myself, Alex, from years more of this responsibility, from watching her waste away naturally when I could have been living my own life. Detective Kim's investigation revealed layers of deception I'd never imagined. Lena had been transferring money from Mom's accounts into a hidden fund, preparing for the day she could claim total control of Mom's finances. She'd already contacted a realtor about selling the house, Detective Kim explained, sliding documents across the table. She was planning to have your mother declared incompetent within the month. The house that held our childhood memories, our Christmas mornings and birthday parties, had already been appraised. Lena had reduced Mom to nothing more than an obstacle to her inheritance. When I told Mom the truth, she didn't react with anger. Instead, she wept silently, tears tracking down her hollow cheeks as she processed her daughter's betrayal. Not because of the money, she whispered when I asked what hurt the most, but because she wanted me gone. My own daughter wanted me to die faster. Her voice cracked on the words. I held her fragile body as she cried, feeling the weight of every day I hadn't been there. Every sign I'd missed. Every time I'd praised Lena for her selfless devotion. Elder abuse, medication tampering, attempted financial exploitation, fraud. The list of charges grew longer each day as investigators uncovered more evidence of Lena's systematic abuse. She sat in the courtroom wearing the same caring expression she'd perfected over months of deception. But her green eyes were empty now, cold calculation replacing any pretense of sisterly love. I couldn't look at her without seeing Mom's trembling hands, hearing her whispered confession about the pills she'd been forced to take. Detective Ken called me on a rainy Thursday morning with news that made my blood run cold. "We examined the staircase where your mother fell," she said, her voice heavy with significance. "The banister screws had been loosened. Your sister didn't just push your mother, Alex. She'd been planning that fall for weeks, maybe months." The phone slipped from my numb fingers. The fall that had started everything, the accident that had made Lena look like a hero, had been the opening move in her plan to kill our mother. With the improper medication stopped, Mum began to improve slowly. The tremors faded. Her appetite returned. The hollow look in her eyes was gradually replaced by the sharp intelligence I remembered from my childhood. I knew something was wrong, she told me one afternoon as we sat in her garden, now cleared of Lena's hospital equipment. But I couldn't think clearly enough to understand what was happening. She was still frail, still recovering from months of systematic poisoning, but my mother was coming back to me one day at a time. During the trial, details emerged about Lena's double life that left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my sister. Credit card debt, failed investments, a lifestyle she'd been funding through Mum's accounts for over a year. The Devoted Daughter Act had been covering financial desperation and a coldness I'd never wanted to see. She'd calculated Mum's death like a business transaction, weighing the costs and benefits. I mourned the sister I thought I'd had while sitting in a courtroom watching the real Lena receive her sentence. "I should have known," I told Dr. Moore during one of Mum's follow-up appointments. "I should have seen the signs earlier. I should have protected her better." Dr. Moore's expression was compassionate but firm. "Your sister spent months perfecting this deception, Alex. She fooled medical professionals, neighbors, and family members. The guilt belongs to her, not to you." But knowing that intellectually didn't ease the weight in my chest every time I looked at Mum's still healing body. Mum and I established new routines built on transparency and trust. I moved closer to be part of her daily life instead of a weekly visitor. We cooked together, tended her garden, and slowly rebuilt what Lena had tried to destroy. "I don't hate her," Mum told me one evening as we watched the sunset from her porch. "But I can't forgive what she was willing to do for money." Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness, leaving scars that never fully fade, even as the wound heals. We removed the hospital bed and safety rails that Lena had used to imprison Mum in her own home. Mum's favorite armchair returned to its place by the window, where she could watch her roses bloom. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if removing Lena's presence had lifted a weight I hadn't realized was pressing down on us. Mum laughed again, the sound rusty from disuse, but genuine. We were rebuilding not just her health, but her joy in being alive. Late at night, I find myself wondering when Lena had changed. Had she always been capable of this coldness? Or had desperation transformed her into someone unrecognizable? How long had she been planning Mum's death? I'd search my memories for signs I'd missed, red flags I'd explained away as sisterly concern, the controlling behavior I'd interpreted as protectiveness, the isolation I'd seen as dedication. Maybe I'd never really known my sister at all. Mrs. Rodriguez checked on Mum daily now, the two elderly women forming a friendship born from survival and mutual care. They shared morning coffee and evening conversations, watching out for each other. "She saved your mother's life," Mrs. Rodriguez told me one afternoon. "If she hadn't spoken up about hearing the argument, Lena might have succeeded. Her weathered hand squeezed mine. Sometimes protection comes from unexpected places, from neighbors brave enough to speak uncomfortable truths. Despite months of systematic abuse, Mum's spirit hadn't been broken. She testified at Lena's trial with quiet dignity, her voice steady as she described the pills forced on her, the confusion that had clouded her mind. "I knew my daughter was hurting me," she said from the witness stand, "but I kept hoping I was wrong. You don't want to believe your own child could wish you dead." Her strength in that moment took my breath away. Guilty on all counts, Lena sat motionless as the verdict was read, her face a mask of cold indifference. She'd shown more emotion picking out Mom's breakfast cereal than she did hearing her sentence. 15 years for elder abuse, attempted murder, and financial exploitation. It wasn't enough to undo the damage she'd caused, but it was enough to ensure she couldn't hurt Mom again. Justice felt both satisfying and hollow at the same time. I visited Lena once in prison, hoping for some explanation, some sign of remorse that might help me understand how we'd reached this point. She sat across from me in orange scrubs, looking smaller, but no less cold. "I'm not sorry," she said when I asked if she had anything to say to Mom. "I'm only sorry I got caught before I finished what I started." I left that visiting room, knowing my sister was truly gone, replaced by someone I'd never seen before. Mom's 78th birthday was different from that terrible day when we'd found her broken at the bottom of the stairs. She stood strong in her garden, surrounded by friends who'd rallied around her during the trial. Mrs. Rodriguez brought homemade tamales. Dr. Moore stopped by with flowers. Sarah Williams, the social worker who'd helped save Mom's life, joined us for cake and stories about survival and second chances. This was what family looked like when built on love instead of inheritance money. "Trust your instincts," Mum advised when I told her about my guilt over not seeing the signs sooner. "But don't let what happened with Lena make you suspicious of everyone who tries to help." Her wisdom came hard-earned through months of manipulation and abuse, but it came nonetheless. We'd both learned the difference between care and control, between love and possession. Some lessons can only be learned through surviving them. Every morning, I didn't take for granted anymore. Every conversation with Mom felt precious, stolen back from the death Lena had planned for her. We'd been given something rare, a second chance most families never receive. "I almost lost you," I told Mom, as we worked in her garden one spring afternoon, her hands steady as she planted new roses. "But you didn't," she replied, soil dark under her fingernails, her eyes bright with life. Lena had tried to steal, and that's what matters now. 3 years later, Mum's garden blooms with varieties she planted after the trial. Her hands are steady, her mind sharp, her laughter frequent and real. The tremors Lena caused have faded completely. I still see her several times a week, not out of guilt or fear, but because I want to, because I love spending time with the woman whose life we saved together. The healing continues, deeper and more complete with each passing season. On quiet evenings when Mum and I sit on her porch watching the sunset paint her roses gold, I'm struck by how close we came to losing this. These peaceful moments were exactly what Lena had tried to steal from us. "Do you think about her?" Mum asks sometimes, meaning Lena. "Every day," I answer honestly. But not with anger anymore, just sadness for what she threw away. We've found peace with the sister and daughter we lost, even as we celebrate the life we saved.